You are listening to the Yoga for Balance podcast. I'm your host, Heather Pugh. Thank you so much for listening. In this week's episode, I speak with Olivia of the Om Experience.
If you know you're feeling a lot of duality right now, know that you're in your mind and that there's nothing wrong with that, but the mind is here to serve us in different ways. And when we use it as a tool versus the end-all, say-all, it can shine so much more. Like the mind it gets us from A to B, it helps us drive, it helps us, function, but the heart is where there will be more neutrality. You'll drop in, you'll know, take a couple deep breaths, close your eyes and place your hand over your heart and your stomach and really drop into your body. These are the two guides. The heart is the guide that leads the way, and the stomach is really letting you know. It's that gut feeling, that intuition, that belly button, that first connection to our mother, our umbilical cord, where we get all of our nutrients, all of our wisdom. And we think the mind is going to get us in and out of things, but the wisdom of the body and the belly and the heart is really where we need to drop in.
Olivia is an international yoga teacher, aerial teacher, intuitive healer, spiritual psychologist, Reiki practitioner, and retreat facilitator based out of San Diego. In this episode, we discuss the power of calling the right people into your yoga experiences and retreats. She also talks about what it's like to work with and collaborate with your partner and what it's like to consciously grow alongside them. We discuss the power of forgiveness, starting with yourself, and how sometimes silence and active listening is the best option. Finally, we discuss taking yoga off the mat and into your lifestyle. I think you'll really enjoy and be inspired by this week's episode. Thank you so much again for listening. Hi, Olivia. Welcome to the Yoga for Balance podcast.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you on this week, and thank you to Mandy for pointing me in your direction. And yeah, so many great things to dive into in this week's episode. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here, and let's dive in.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So I wanted to start by taking a step back and having you just describe what your experience of yoga is and has been as a student and now a teacher.
Okay. Yoga definitely started as a physical practice for me, and then I don't know, I just think having that time in Shavasana to reflect, not just that workout that went from one thing to the next, just was really something that resonated, and just slowing down even in the movement. I remember the first class I connected with my breath. I just feel like there's so many layers with yoga. It's just constantly evolving. So it's been fun to be on both sides, the student and the teacher side. And I think once you're a student for so long, you're like, oh, I can teach that. And then you start taking the training and teaching, you're like, oh, okay. It's a little different than I thought, and that's a fun journey in itself too. So it's been a fun process from beginning to end, but it's definitely gotten deeper and deeper and deeper into the more spiritual as time went on.
And what styles of yoga have you primarily been drawn to as a student, and trainings that you have done to learn more about?
Definitely vinyasa was where I started, that movement, just kind of getting that out, that flow. And then yin, I do love stillness and just quiet. I feel like that brings so much balance into my being. Hatha is probably one of the more challenging for me, holding the poses and the stillness. But I took a Hatha training with Elka, and that was very beautiful because it was so challenging in different ways to do something that wasn't just so natural to me, and definitely it helped me grow so much. So I teach more vinyasa style and a yin, but I like to incorporate those practices that bring me balance, not just always do the ones that I love so much.
That's a good point. Yes, because there's that voice inside oh, I know this is going to be hard, but right. Yes, that's why I should probably be doing it.
Totally. Call in a little bit of dealing with that resistance and working with it, and not always doing things that are really, she taught me in Ayurveda, there's this saying like creates like. So if you like spicy food, you're going to want, once you have like a really spicy bite, you got to like keep eating spicy to keep that maintained in your mouth. So it's like you're always going to create like, but the opposite will heal you. So I just thought, ooh, I really could resonate with that. I always like spicy foods or moving really fast, or I resonated with all these different parts of myself when I was much younger. So just really to even think about welcoming something of the opposite was so new to me. I thought that was really cool.
It's a really beautiful way to think about it. I love that.
Yeah.
And you were just on a yoga retreat. I'd love you to just share about that experience, since it is fresh, and you know what kind of retreats you typically will lead people on, and what this retreat was for you, and if there were any big aha moments and learnings that you had coming back from that.
No, it's so fun when it's fresh. It's just like, oh, I still got the tan. I can like feel like the salt on my skin, and like it just feels so good because it stays with you for like a week or two, and you just feel like the remnants of it and the joy. And I even have my wristband on, so I'm not even a person that would keep wristbands on, but I'm like, can't let it go this time. But yeah, each one is so unique and so different in the way of how it all comes together. There's such a level of trust, I believe, in planning retreats, because you're calling in people energetically, or that's how I like to do it, to really, think about how many people I want, where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and I put and begin to build that list on my altar, and I really call in people that are going to come together for the biggest amount of growth and joy and fun and connection, but there's a lot of trust in that, because there's so much that we can't control, even if it feels like maybe you can. You just never know till you get there. So yeah, this one really pushed me into a new level of trust. Beforehand, I had a lot of people sign up very last minute, and so I was like really stretched in that way. And then once we got there, it felt like, oh, okay, I had done maybe a little bit of the work beforehand, and so things really flowed on this retreat. And having my brother there is the first time I had a family member. My husband and I do the retreats together, so I always have him as like my rock, and we're always doing everything together. But I think to have a family member on was a little bit, brought another level of vulnerability, and vulnerability to the group, because it felt like I'm sharing my family with you, and so it felt like we all kind of became family. Even our first meal was like almost 5 hours. I was like, all right, we're gonna be good. These people are gelling, there's something special going on here. So, there's times where I think you can want to, hold space for people in a certain way and show up a certain way and think that it needs to look like this. But what I really learned on this retreat was there can be so much healing and so much depth in just the being, and just showing up, 7 days in a row through all of the journeys and the highs and the lows and the everything, and to just be very vulnerable and to show up with people and to share more of myself than maybe I have in the past, because it was a smaller group and we could drop in a different way. And so that was really special to me, because sometimes you want to create these amazing healing moments and you want everyone to have the best experience, and to be so involved but not attached is like such a huge practice, so every day we send out the energy and call in my guides and, ask to be that vessel to channel whatever is going to be what they need that day. But it's moment to moment, it's really present, and it was really stretched in a really beautiful way. And I had a lot of reflection of you might not know the effect you have on people, and they might never know the effect they have on me, or I have on them, or they have on me, but to trust that like it's enough, quote, quote, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many times if you're a yoga teacher listening, you've practiced and had a student coming to class for months or weeks, and after a class they finally come up and say, this, oh my God, like it's one of the most I love it when a student says how much you've helped me, or they stay after and they're like, I haven't told you, but this has just been keeping me going. I've been going through this and this and this, and they're not telling you that first time or that second or third class, maybe it's months down the line, but hear that and know that for every person not telling you, there's probably so many others out there that you're positively affecting in that way. It's just, I don't think I've ever been thanked so much in a job.
Oh my gosh, and the hugs that we get and like so much love that comes our way. I'm so grateful for it. So grateful. And then at the same time, like you said, like not attached, like it doesn't need the praise, or I don't need any of that. You're just the attachment to the healing and the love and the connection, and just knowing that it doesn't need words, and it can, and that's beautiful, but to trust like all the stuff you don't see or you don't hear, and like all the things that you would love to say to your students, like, oh my gosh, you inspired me, or thank you for showing up today, I was feeling this way and now I'm feeling like this. And there's just so much we can say or not say, and just trusting in that, like we're all rippling into one another, and it's all spiraling up, I guess.
And so you mentioned that you and your husband work together and run those retreats together. So I'd love you to just chat a little bit about how that works and what kind of parts are you handling, what is he handling, and I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. We were actually reflecting. We met, he came to a yoga class, so we met that way, and he offered to play music in the class, and I just thought that was a great idea. I just started teaching, so I was like, ooh, somebody else in the room too would be nice to kind of have something else to focus on, I guess. But we realized the other day we haven't even really known our relationship without working together, because we started working together and as friends first for a while. So it's always been a layer that's been there, and I think it can be really beautiful and really challenging at the same exact time. I think we've helped each other grow in so many ways of the experience that we've been able to have and create together, but it's a constant daily practice of just showing up and being conscious and communication and all those like gems. But yeah, I mean, he is just an artist and a musician and just such a beautiful person and support system for me. And so yeah, we always talk about like sometimes you're the kite and sometimes you're the string, and just to give each other that space to fly, and the other one can ground, or we're both flying, we're both grounding, and just allowing each other to really come together and bring our gifts together, but to also shine on our own, and to honor the individual respectfully. And it's just a constant dance. If anyone's married or in a relationship, they know it's a constant practice, and I really view it as a way of consciously growing. Like my consciousness is, I feel like, evolving constantly, because I'm having to choose to do it with someone else, which can challenge you in the best and all the ways. So it's been a beautiful process. We love it. It's just been growing for years. This was our 5th retreat. 4 of the years we brought people, and our first year we went down as guests. So I feel like the synergy has grown, just like our relationship. We're kind of getting each other, learning each other's strengths and where we can help each other and support each other. So it's constant. It's definitely a constant ebb and flow. But I'm really grateful. I'm really, really grateful for it. I went to a school, and it was not a father, but a husband and wife that taught it together. And I remember being in, that school and being like, that is amazing. Like they worked together. It was just so beautiful to watch their synergy, and thinking, oh, I want that one day, but not really just, like a 20-year-old and very innocent mind. And then I'm like, oh, wow, I really called that in. So I try to remind myself that must be exactly where I'm supposed to be, and what I need to evolve in growth and relationship.
Yeah, I loved it. In Ecuador, Hector, who I had Iris on the show a few episodes ago earlier, and Hector, our director, him and his wife would teach the Kundalini together, and their son would be in the room, and it was just such a beautiful energy. And there was so much of that in Ecuador, where it was just families working together. And Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful thing to be able to grow together, work and live and figure all of that out. Because we spend so much of our time there. And then just that energy you're bringing to the room and the space and the collaboration, it's just, really beautiful.
Oh, that's so cool that you recently experienced
Yes,
that, because it's the masculine, the feminine, and then it's the whole like dance between the two, and that's powerful.
Yeah, and their child was in the room, and he was, I think, about 4, and sometimes he would walk around. He wasn't always there, but sometimes he'd walk around and come sit on your mat, or he'd have his little, game he was playing with, and they're like, that's child energy. That's learning to be, and for some people are more adept to children, or others, don't have patience for children, but it was like, this is life right here.
Yes,
and
this is
seeing
real
that
life.
And experiencing that in the room, it's something so beautiful to that. So I was really touched by that. And even on our ashram, I lived on a mountainside in Ecuador, and there was a family that cooked our meals every day, and they would come up, they would cook. We had 3 meals, vegetarian meals a day, as part of, similar to what you would have on a retreat, but we're all living on site, doing our yoga teacher training, day to night, same thing. And they would literally walk up the mountain as a family. Their dog would follow them, and they'd bring all of our meals for the day, 3 times a day. And it was just the most beautiful thing that this whole family gets to be together and do that, and that that we're like sustaining each other and helping support each other, and it's right there up the street. It was so cool.
It's such a cool exchange, know, and that's so powerful. I love that. The place you went to sounds so magical.
Yeah, it was. I hope to take a retreat group back there, but this
that
year's
awesome.
wedding planning, that's my big event for the year. But 2020, I feel I'm planting to see there will be a yoga retreat or 2, because I miss them. I think it's such a powerful experience I've been, part of as an attendee as well as an instructor. So I would love to bring a group back there, but next year.
Totally hear you. One thing, I get it. That's all encompassing in a good way. The wedding planning. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the workshops that you do, the Alchemy of Healing, and then the one-on-one soul coaching. So the work that you do around healing and going that next step with people that you encounter in your work.
Yes. Yeah. Kind of like you were talking about before, that you were into journalism and writing, and like how to mesh kind of the two worlds of like, I was really passionate about spirituality and spiritual psychology and stuff like that, but there was like a little bit of a gap, and so I felt like yoga was this beautiful bridge to really mesh these 2 things, the mind, the body, or the 3 things, the mind, the body, and the spirit, and to bring it all together. And I think we teach what we maybe A, need the most, or B, have experienced the most, because teaching from a place of experience, so that experiential learning is so different and relatable in a different way, that I feel like the forgiveness workshops, which is what the Alchemy of Healing is, it's a self-forgiveness workshop. And so I just felt like that was so powerful. That really called to me, because I think forgiveness is challenging for some people. And I know for me, I'm happy to forgive, but it just would take time. In the past, it would take a lot of time, and even still today sometimes, but I've really worked with self-forgiveness and just being really gentle with ourselves. I think it starts there, and then really releasing the forgiveness for like the judgments of the thoughts that we have that just come and go, that aren't us. Forgiveness for maybe actions and things that we just haven't showed up our best. And so I just think forgiveness as gratitude, like we were saying, is so powerful, because if you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, if you're pushing that edge on a daily or a weekly basis, which I feel like so many of us are, really just expanding into our truth more and more every day, it's not going to always be up to our best standards or perfection that we push on ourselves. So it's like self-forgiveness is going to be a really powerful tool to help you continue to stretch, because if you're showing up and doing things you've never done before, maybe you're going to quote like fail, or it's not going to show up that first or second time. And if there's not the kindness and the forgiveness of like, well, gosh, at least I tried, at least I went for it, I experienced something, I learned something, I think we can stay really paralyzed in fear. And so I know so many of us are wanting to live out of love and not fear, and that's something I'm definitely working on. So stepping into more of that self-forgiveness and know that like there is no fear of failure. Like I can't fail. It didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to, and working with my expectations of myself and expectations we put on others, our partners, our business partners, our friends, our family. And so I found it to just be a powerful tool. And when people can really show up and be intimate with each other in those ways, we see like, wow, we're all so similar, and we're all really hard on ourselves, and how it's not serving us, and how it feels so good to uplift and share. And if I'm going to share that with someone else, why wouldn't I share that with myself? And so I really like to promote and hold space for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that opening and sharing, because it's one thing for us to have the realization or to say, sure, I forgive myself or I forgive others, but to vocalize it and talk through it. And another thing we did in Tantra was kind of back and forth communications and just talking and active listening without putting your spin on the response.
Yes.
So just giving the person across from you the space to share and to air things out that maybe they think, for me at least, I found it was stuff that I thought I had processed and healed, but apparently I hadn't, or it was still somewhere in there. But just really talking through it got me to that other side, at least a little more so than beforehand. And yeah, I think finding that connection is so powerful, and to be able to hold that space for people to do that is a really, really strong, awesome thing.
And that, oh my gosh, to practice that active listening. I mean, those are like tools that we just need to learn in the school, like just to learn to listen, and you don't have to respond, and just to hold space for others. I mean, these are like powerful life skills to teach people, So yeah, like in the group, we get into groups of 3, and like one person's an active listener. So you're the, kind of holding space for that person. One person is sharing, and then one person is there just completely silent. And they're just kind of known as this loving battery. And we all kind of learn like, wow, as the silent person, you're going to want to share like all your insights, so to hold that all in. And then you see that like, they came to it all on their own, exactly what you said, when you just needed the space to talk. So that then you realize like, oh wow, I may be interrupting or cutting people off from their own strain of consciousness that's going to lead them to where they need to go, and they're going to catch it and learn it and resonate with it so much more if it comes from within. So just like being quiet sometimes is such a huge practice. So
are there any other practices from the experiences that you lead that if someone listening right now feels they're having a hard time with this, something they could try at home?
I think, it might sound really simple, but I was even just sharing with someone earlier of just sometimes we don't know exactly where we want to be, but we know what's not working. And so it's like to use all of that as fuel to transform, of like, okay, if I know what's not working, I can think of a couple things that are, or things that I want to call in. And so to just like put like literally write down I am on a middle of a piece of paper, and write a heart around it, and then write the spokes of like where you want to be and the feelings you want to embody, but not being so attached to the how, because our mind's going to logically want to be like, well, this or that, compare pros and cons, negative and positive, and there's so much duality. If you know you're feeling a lot of duality right now, know that you're in your mind, and that there's nothing wrong with that, but the mind is here to serve us in different ways. And when we use it as a tool versus the end all say all, it can shine so much more. Like the mind it gets us from A to B, it helps us drive, it helps us, function, but the heart is where like there will be more neutrality. Like you'll drop in, you'll know, take a couple deep breaths, close your eyes, and place your hand over your heart and your stomach, and really drop into your body. Like these are the two guides. Like the heart is the guide that leads the way, and the stomach is really letting you know it's that gut feeling, that intuition, that belly button, that first connection to our mother, our umbilical cord, where we get all of our nutrients, all of our wisdom. And we think the mind is going to get us in and out of things, but the wisdom of the body and the belly and the heart is really where we need to drop in for that wisdom and that guidance. Not picking up the phone or calling someone else or doing things like those are signs of awareness of like, oh, that's my time, I need to go within. If I'm looking outward in all these different places, it's like you're really avoiding your own inner voice. And so it's okay, but just to strengthen it, it's like a muscle. It's trust. It needs it. All of our emotions are like muscles, and they all need to be strengthened to create that emotional intelligence, or else it's just going to run us ragged. And so to kind of call your power back, to close your eyes and really draw your energy back into all the things you've been putting it out towards, your distractions and all the things you're letting drain you, and to just say, no, enough. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. And it's just kind of like letting it go.
Yes, but putting that into practice, as you said, can be tricky.
Totally.
So showing up even when it gets hard, knowing that, that we should be listening. So these contemplative practices, such as meditation and yoga, and you do Reiki as well, correct?
Yes.
So things where you can get to know yourself, be quiet with yourself, hear that voice, hear the heartbeat, hear what your stomach is telling you.
There's so many layers. That's so true. Layer by layer by layer, whatever resonates, just keep showing up. That's definitely like a powerful mantra. I led like a 3-month women's group last summer, like Summer of Soul, like a mastermind group, and that was our mantra, like just show up. Because like the mind's gonna go back and forth. So when you said that, I was like, yes, I love that. It's just about showing up and just accepting and being kind with whatever comes from that space, and finding those tools and practices that you can put in your toolbox that you can reach in for when life comes our way, or just every single day, keeping that self-love battery running, not just when we're feeling low or needing it, but to just make that a constant practice. It's definitely I'm talking to myself. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go home and take a bath and do this. I'm gonna use these rose petals right here. But that's why I love having conversations like this, or connecting with other people, because it reminds us. Like, we're not saying, I'm not sharing one thing you guys haven't heard before, but we just need that reminder again and again and again. So it's like, oh, thanks for the reminder. I really appreciate it.
And that patience for ourselves for forgetting, and not berating ourselves for letting our own self-care go to the wayside. It happens.
Right.
But that's why it's all that practice of balance.
Yes.
Getting back to that.
Yes, that gratitude and self-forgiveness really helps me to call in that balance.
And you do also nonprofit work, so taking your yoga off of the mat. So for people that, when you even say yoga off the mat, like, what do you mean? Yoga off the mat. You're not moving the body on your yoga mat. So what do you feel is the power of moving beyond your yoga mat and bringing yoga out into the world?
Wow, I love that. I definitely would like to do more of that. I feel like there is such a call for sharing and expanding our knowledge. But yoga off the mat, I love it. That was our mantra on this retreat too, because you're only on the mat for 1 hour and we're together like 24/7. So it's that consciousness, that kindness, that compassion, that oneness. I've noticed, yoga off the mat for me has changed my eating, just how I feel about animals and plants, and just the consciousness of how I want to show up and be an example. And I don't need to put that on anyone else, but I've noticed like just big shifts within myself, within my own consciousness of how I'd like to contribute to different things. And I think yoga off the mat is stuff like that. Like, you just start to show up in a different way, in the way that you are. I think it starts with yourself, that self-love, that self-reflection, and then when you tap into more of that oneness, you see that within others and within other beings, and it drops you into a more tuned in space, is what I've experienced. And so I feel like sharing that with as much as we possibly can. I feel like we are blessed in San Diego and Southern California with so many resources, so many amazing restaurants and yoga studios and this and that, and I'm really deeply feeling the call to go to places that there aren't like these kind of restaurants on every block, or there's not a yoga studio on every single block, and go to other parts in America that it's not far away that can just maybe learn about movement or conscious eating or gardening or kindness or compassion or loving one another or not being racist, and just really seeing all of the things we have in common versus focusing on these imaginary things that we don't. I'm just finding that more and more and more important in my life every single day. And like, I love that we have all of this and we're privileged with this comfort, but I'm ready to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone and maybe be in a room with people that are like, what? You know, like, what are you talking about? Like, and that's good for me. Like, I don't need to speak to like 20 people that just went through like 25 hours of teacher training, which is amazing, and I'm happy to, and I want to, and they're going to ripple out and go teach others. But it's like, it does take a little bit of strengthening your muscle of being okay with it if people aren't accepting, or they're not coming up to you after yoga class and being like, that was amazing, but still being secure in yourself of like, I'm sharing something that is purposeful and true to me, and it's okay if maybe they don't get it for 20 years. I'm not attached to that. I'm just attached to like the opening of it. And so I no disrespect to anybody that's doing anything. I teach an Elka's teacher training. I do trainings here with my Reiki, and I love my comfort zone. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, how long can I be in that comfort zone? You know, I'm just feeling like teaching yoga used to be out of my comfort zone, and then leading something used to be out of my comfort zone. And so I'm just feeling like we're all really getting pushed like so lovingly out of the nest of like, you know, like, hey, you got wings now, fly, man, you know, like, try it, you know, you don't even know unless you try. So yeah, I feel like all of us are expanding, and like, you're going to Ecuador and they're teaching you and share, but you know, it's rippling out all over. I'm going to Mexico, and you know, everybody's kind of going. We have such ways of travel that other generations never had, and we're able to connect with each other in all these amazing ways. So it's just like, ooh, yeah, I'm feeling the call. Like, the time is now. Let's go do it and share it and spread it, and then come back and strengthen each other again and go back out into the field. But yeah, I feel like that's what a lot of that sharing nonprofit work. Like, I love what Kim is doing with the One Love. I mean, that is so amazing and organic and beautiful. And we, my husband is involved with, it's called Chorus of the Choir, I believe, but it's on Market and 16th every Friday, and it's a homeless choir. And they have different homeless people that come up and sing, and I think singing is like, or music is like food, you know, it just brings people together, and they're just in their most open, loving selves. And so it's been really fun. And we've only worked with them a little bit, but I really want to work with them more, and you know, just sharing joy and art and passion and life, and then all the other sides of it at the same time too. But to really tap into those communities that aren't getting it, and it's not being shared with. That's where I'm feeling the call lately.
That's beautiful.
Thanks for asking. I just got fired up. I didn't even realize that was in there. I'm like, ooh, okay.
I love it. Hey, that's what I love about these conversations, because I can see from across from you, like, oh, that spark, like, to get you to think of something in a new way.
That was cool. Thank you.
I love it. And I love, because I never know where these conversations are going to lead, and I hope that you listening at home can feel the magic through your speakers, because there's so many beautiful insights that come out of these conversations, and already so far I'm like, oh my God, I love this. It's such a beautiful conversation. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and magic with the world.
Oh, my pleasure. No, this is great. Thank you. This is really, really wonderful.
So final two questions. If you have a tip, and I know you already gave one, but if you have another tip, a 10-minute tip, just something that anyone listening could try at home to find more balance, what would be one thing you would recommend people try?
For me personally, just the first thing that came to mind that's actually something that I practice myself is a shower or a bath at night. As just a quick part of a ritual to just energetically rinse your day. I think we brush our teeth, we take showers in the morning to like get ready for our day, but it's also a way to energetically let your day go and to prepare for bed and to just let your whole being know like we showed up, did our best. We're gonna do it again tomorrow, but for now we get to just not, and I think in society and today it's really hard to turn off. Like you said, like we're just constantly on, we have this go mentality, and so it's almost like you have to schedule in this time to detach. And so for me it's a night shower that it's like this metaphor of just like the water coming over and cleansing and washing and detoxifying and just a release, and I get out. And any little thing you can do before you go to bed to just really drop in and call your energy back into yourself, because we give so much with love and light and joy and happiness, but we forget to really call it back in and to give back to ourselves and to give from a place of fullness, so it doesn't turn into resentment or exhaustion, but of just a full overflowing source.
That's wonderful. And finally, what does balance feel like to you?
Oh, I love that. That's so good. I feel like balance feels I gotta feel off balance before I feel balanced, to be really honest. Like those days where I'm really off, thank God, after years of work, I feel like I go like I get an awareness like, oh, woo, okay.